A brand has to make sense. I was at an event one time and I met a man who was a lawyer. Although when I looked at him, he didn't look like a lawyer. He didn't have his suit on. He told me he had a brand and his brand was the color pink. The color pink is not a brand. Just like a logo is not a brand, a name is not a brand. All these are elements of a brand, but you need a lot of things tied together to call something a brand. So when I asked him to tell me more about this color pink being his brand, he told me it was something that helped people remember him because it was a little different, because generally speaking, lawyers don't wear pink. So I said, but what does it mean? He said, well, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just something I do. Well, now that's really a problem because it really doesn't make sense. A brand has to make a connection in the audience's mind to what you're doing so that becomes sticky. I understand what he's going for when he says the color is a little bit different from what people are used to in talking to lawyers, so he thinks it's memorable, but it's not necessarily memorable just because it's different. It has to stick, and the connection is what makes it stick. Now, it would have made more sense if he had some kind of connection to breast cancer awareness. Maybe he had a mom or a sister or wife that battled breast cancer and overcame it and was a survivor, and he was in full support of it. Maybe he even donated a portion of his revenue towards breast cancer research. That would make sense. That way there was a connection and it made sense in people's minds that said, oh, I see, he's the pink lawyer, he's the breast cancer awareness lawyer, he has a social cause that backs up his brand. So there's a cohesiveness there that makes sense. In a different scenario, I know a woman whose brand is very rebellious in nature. She lets the F-bombs fly, her language is very edgy and it's on the fringe of what people are considering uncomfortable, and it's all part of the way she projects her brand, but it works for her. So what did she do? She got a haircut specifically designed to look rebellious, to bring out that edginess in herself that reflected her true brand. But because it was already part of her brand to be rebellious, it made sense in her audience's mind. So that when they see her and her rebellious haircut and they read her website and all the languages of this nature of fringy and edgy and making people uncomfortable, yet at the same time offering tremendous value because that's who she attracts, it makes perfect sense in the consumer's mind, so there's a connection there, and that's what makes sense. You can't just take one aspect of a brand and call it your brand, because if there's no connection in the audience's minds, it really is not very memorable. It's definitely not sticky. It has to be well thought out and all tied together with a consistency and cohesiveness that just makes sense.